that people can join. So people are coming in now.
Okay. Do you normally wait till, a few minutes after?
Yeah, we'll let people are just coming in. So,
Okay.
and I see people coming in, so it's great. Jerry, Brooke, Lauren, Lindsay, thank you. If you'd like, we do have, you should be able to put notes and messages in the chat. So if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, that's totally fine. And if you'd also like to ask questions, you can ask questions in the Q&A. So everybody should. So welcome today. And it shows Karen's picture, but it's really me because we share our link or our Zoom. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone. We'll give it just one more minute. And I'll just, Courtney, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. So hello, everybody, and welcome, and to expanding your distribution through logistics. What? Okay, we're very excited about this, and I got to have a sneak preview of what we're doing. This is also being recorded, so if you want to go back and watch anything, you're welcome to do that. So a couple quick things. Don't forget about some of the events that we have coming up, and you can always find the events on our website. So if you go to our website, here it is. We have the newest issue of AC Magazines. All of our magazines are always under the magazine section of the website. And of course, the ACE magazine, which came out just recently. We also have another AC Features, which is also great to look at. More events. We actually have a few more things coming up that aren't listed yet, but you will see them shortly. One thing I do want to talk about is we have our holiday press luncheon. We're switching it up this year. It will be a luncheon where we'll be inviting in the press and influencers. It'll be in a great setting. They'll get to have lunch. We'll present your product for you. It's your must-have item of the season. And then there'll be a place for you to meet one-on-one with them afterwards. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. And what I'd like to do is to introduce to you today Courtney Folk, who is from Renewal Logistic. She's actually one of the co-founders. I think she founded it with her significant other, with her husband. So she's a co-founder and CEO of Renewal Logistics, and it is a full service fulfillment company based in Atlanta. So right in the middle of the country. And it's a pretty cool company, and hopefully one of these days I'd actually like to go and see it. Because yes, logistics is so important to all of our businesses, whether we like it or not. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And Courtney, you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your company?
Sure. Do you want me to pull up the?
Yeah, go ahead and you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Hold on one second. Tell you what, let me back out.
In the meantime, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A at the bottom or in the chat, either way. And if you have questions and you want me to ask, you can just text me or put it into the chat here.
Second, I'm trying to, the presentation just moved away. Give me one more second.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, do you want to pull it up? I don't know why it's buried behind a couple different screens, it looks like for me. So it's going to take.
Okay, hold on. I only have the original one you sent me.
I can do this. Give me one more second.
Yeah. In the meantime, while Courtney is getting that pulled up, we do have our next monthly member meetup next month, so please mark that on your calendar. And we actually also have some different editorial requests, and one of them is pins. So if you make great pins, whether it is for a man or a woman, we'd love your pins. So make sure you're looking at the editorial request, which is going to be in our newsletter that I think comes out like any second now. And it's also always on our website. And of course, you know, Courtney had this up right before everyone
I did.
got on.
I'm sorry. Hold on one more second. I just need one more second.
So
Okay.
modern technology.
Yes, exactly. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay. Can you see this?
Yay!
Yay. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for coming today. Very excited to be talking to you a little bit about, you know, omni-channel fulfillment and how the process works when you start expanding into multiple channels. And, you know, they always say that a great product is important, but great distribution is what makes or breaks a brand from really growing. So I think today is going to be exciting. We're going to have a great conversation about what the omni-channel process looks like to get into it, what omni-channel is, and then how you need to be thinking about having the tools and the technology and the right partnerships in place to be able to kind of really execute it. So first, let's see if I can get this to work. So a little bit about our company. We work with a lot of very large apparel brands, as well as some small and medium-sized mid-market brands. So we work with, for instance, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, the parent company of those, which is PVH, which also owns Warner Company, as well as Olga. We work with Tory Burch. We work with Carter's, the baby clothes company. And then we have a lot of smaller and mid-market brands as well. So I'm sure you're familiar with Peter Millar. We also have Southern Point, Madison Creek, Mestiza, Abbey Glass, quite a few in the apparel space. And we have a great relationship with Dillard's, where we are kind of a right-hand partner for them as a retailer to when they want to bring in new brands that haven't really launched their distribution channels yet, really understand how to go about making sure everything is compliant. We help them to help bring those brands on so that they can bring on new and exciting brands faster. So that's a little bit about us. We have 3 locations in the Southeast and a bench of about 3,200 workers. And I always kind of show that first screen because I want everybody to see kind of that we are in the apparel business, but really this is what our company is all about, is giving a great vibe of hospitality. And we do this through our 3 main core values, which are to bring relief, promote trust, and put in a lot of discretionary effort to make sure that any customers we're working with are very happy. So for today, the goal of this presentation is for the members of the Accessories Council to walk away feeling confident, informed, and have a vision regarding expanding your distribution through logistics, which should allow you to think bigger about the potential of your business. And so we're going to kind of hit 3 main points today. The first one is, how do you become omni-channel? What does that even mean? The second one is like outsourcing, reasons for that and how to make sure it works. And then the third is the importance of fit. So how do you know when you're looking at a vendor, which it may be me, it may be someone completely different? How do you know that you have the right fit when it comes to helping you with distribution? So the first thing, like, what does it mean to be omni-channel today? So there are a lot of benefits and drawbacks, but basically omni-channel means that you are a brand and you are able to meet your buyers and your customers where they are. So maybe it's through email, and I actually have a picture here for you. So maybe it's through your website, maybe it's through your social media channels. Hopefully you have an email campaign that's also pushing out content to stay in touch with people. And then you have direct-to-consumer marketplaces such as Amazon, eBay, Google Shopping. And then you kind of start getting into the B2B side, which is going to include the B2B marketplaces such as Fair, Jour, Fashion Go, and New Order. And then you have your retailers, which would be like Dillard's and Macy's, Neiman's, Nordstrom, Target, Walmart. And within those, they also have their website. And then you have, boutiques for like small business wholesale, like to do small business wholesale. So you may sell product at the mart and it's purchased by different boutiques. And then you have your own brand stores. So kind of fleshing out that whole picture of all the different channels that you can work in really is what it means to be omni-channel. Cindy, I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to this at this point about like what you've seen with brands in terms of being omni-channel.
I think the other thing is, I think you've hit on everything, and we know that in today's world, you just can't be one thing, that you have to do it all, and you have to figure out how to do it all. Because you want to meet your customers where they are, whether they're shopping in the store, online, on their phone, however it is, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to them.
Exactly. And some of the benefits of being a omni-channel brand, exactly what you said, like meeting them where they are, but you're giving your customers a variety of ways to shop. There's a lot of flexibility for consumers in terms of purchasing and paying. So a great example of this is I was at Dillard's headquarters a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about their website and how generally when shoppers leave their website, the reason they're leaving is to go to a store to try something on. And so they may purchase it at the store, or they may go back to the website and click, pay, and then all of a sudden the item shows up at their house a couple days later. But that's a great example of why being omni-channel is really important, is so that you've got the ability for your customers to kind of feel in touch product. And also you're leveraging the strength of all of the marketing and the reach of your retail partners. Another huge thing with this is like improved analytics. So you have a lot more insight into the customer journey and their shopping habits if you have a digital approach as well as a brick and mortar approach. And then you can do a lot of reordering through like targeted social media and mail campaigns. So once you get someone in the door, it's easy to keep them in the door if you keep, touching them here and there. Some drawbacks to being omni-channel are that it is very, very easy to get spread too thin. And you really do need to have a channel management strategy in place. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Let me see. So do we go? Okay. So in terms of the expansion process, what does it look like? So like, let's say that you pick out that you have 3 or 4 different distribution channels that you really want to focus on. How do you do that? So part of the process is picking out which channels are going to bring you the most revenue. And maybe you can do some testing. Maybe you can look at other brands that are similar to yours, find out what they're doing and ask some questions. There are different platforms for your products, and you can test the platforms which work and those that don't. There's, social selling generally is going to come with some level of a fee. LTK mentions on websites of magazines like Southern Living and things like that A lot of those are going to be more paid promotion. And then, you're going to have the ability to sell to, retailers through the channels like Fair and Jor. And Cindy, we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, that there are just so many different options for people to be able to get their product out there. So being able to kind of really make sure that you're picking the best options based on the fee structure, based on the traffic, based on the customer fit with, who's actually there. So, so it's really about asking some of those questions. And, there's also, of course, TikTok Shop, Instagram Shop. And then, there are some different kind of important things to think about when it comes to how channels work. So for instance, the fairs or the jewels or the new orders, that's going to be brand new inventory where you are probably going to try to give your wholesale accounts the opportunity to get the fresh inventory out first. So having a strategy of like, how are you going to communicate about new products and what products do you want to have on each channel? A great example, we talk to a lot of customers who are looking to get on Amazon, and some of those are apparel brands. A lot of our Amazon business is actually not apparel. And what companies will do is they'll have like a name brand product that they're selling through the retail distribution or through their website. And then they have something that's very similar, but slightly different, that may be not a different name brand that's on Amazon. So they're leveraging their ability to buy more product at the source, but they're changing it just slightly, maybe labeling it differently so that they can have, some product that's going to go at a more premium price point and some that's going to go through an Amazon channel. Another thing especially with apparel, what will happen is a lot of times customers will sell product through the retail channels, through their own website. And then at the end of the season, when they have returns, they'll actually put that product on Amazon to sell that's like past season, because they know that it's probably going to get less of a return. But the value of Amazon, of course, is that everyone has the ability to shop, and it's so easy to just click that button. So a lot of times when you're talking about retailers and you're thinking about getting in with retailers, you've got certain elements that you kind of have to think about. So they'll generally have a drop ship arm, then they'll also have an in-store arm. And so for drop ship, it's really going to be, smaller order quantities that are going out at once. The more larger that it will go into their store is usually going to be case packs rather than single units. And then there's going to be an EDI component with that. So you'll have to get set up on a platform to do EDI. And EDI is basically just the way that large retailers communicate with their vendors. So it seems very complicated. There are a lot of forms like the 944 and the 945 and then 863, or, there's tons of numbers that get thrown around when it comes to EDI, but really it's pretty simple. It's like, what product are you packing in what box? What is coming to them? So they're basically getting like an inventory list ahead of time of what it is that you're shipping into them, based on each case. They're going to get routing instructions that are going to say, okay, this is going to come on a pallet, or this is going to come in several parcels, or it's going to even maybe be a full truckload if you're selling just a lot of product into like an Amazon or to a Target. So there are just a few instructions that are going to pass back and forth through EDI, but you do have to have kind of a setup for that. A lot of times a new retailer will give you like a very short grace period of like 3 to 6 months to see if your product is going to sell on their platform. And then you can actually go into their platform and do some of the data entry manually to be able to push an EDI order out. But after a while, they're going to want you to have an EDI vendor, and that would be there's a lot of them that are out there, but our personal favorite is SPS Commerce. We work with them quite a lot. They're kind of an easy button when it comes to EDI. Also, retailers are now expecting that items by 2027, except for some beauty products like lipsticks and liquids, as well as some items that have metal in them. So like home good items may not have this, but most products that are in retail stores at this point are going to have RFID labels. There's actually a mandate that by 2027, everything is going to have to be RFID labeled. And so, when you're thinking about these different channels, you're going to have, you're going to kind of need to map out, okay, here are the places I want to be, and then what are their requirements, and then be able to kind of build some communication to go back to your factory on what actually needs to be done. And so a great example of this, like I was saying with the RFID tags, you do have to use GS1 codes for retail. You can't just use your own manufactured SKU codes anymore. However, if you're just selling to boutiques or on your own website, then certainly you can use your own SKU codes. And then finally, there's questions of what about an in-store experience versus a digital experience. So a great example, one of our brands is a men's grooming products line, and they have shampoo and conditioner and like face wash and different types of fragrances for men. And they said that, when they started going into Target, they wanted to leave the shampoo and conditioners without having the seal on the top of the bottle so that people could open it and smell it, because that's a part of the in-store experience. And so then if they want to have an omni-channel approach, which would be to sell on maybe Target.com as well as like Amazon or their own website, that's not going to work, right? Like, because it can leak, the bottles can leak. So what is the solution? Do you have a separate set of SKUs for the product that does have a foil seal over the lid? Or do you wrap those items before they ship out in a certain way so that you don't have to worry about spillage? So these are some of the different things that you kind of have to consider when it comes to mapping out your expansion process. Is there anything else that you might want to add? I don't want to just be talking all by myself.
No, I think it's good. So I think the biggest thing is, let's continue on.
Okay. So 3 keys to channel management. And so this is really, like, how do you make sure that, that what you do when you try to execute a channel management program, it's going to actually work. So what are the 3 main components? The first one is having a communication plan mapped out. And so what that basically means is, and we touched on this just a little bit, but I have a client right now who has a retail business. She sells a lot on her website and through social media. And then she also has boutiques. She lets her boutiques roll out product first. She gives them a 3-week period of time to where those SKUs are fresh for them. And she's doing 10 collections a year. So this is kind of always, so everything is, so her wholesale boutique customers are able to roll these out 3 weeks in advance. Then she does a drop. And so there's a communication strategy that's in place there. They know what's coming. They know when their deadline is for selling it. And then she's posting when she's going to be making this public to everyone. So, sharing with your retailers about where your products are and where they can or cannot sell your products. Pricing is another one. So again, going back to the Amazon companies that want to work with Amazon, Amazon does require that the goods that are posted on their website or on their marketplace are the least expensive online. So, if you want to price, get into a price war with yourself, a lot of times items that are on Amazon, other marketplaces may or may not want them. So what you have to do there is just make things just slightly different. So a great example, we actually sell products as well. And one of our products for a very long time was iPhone cables. And so we would have some cables that would sell retail. And then we would create 4 packs of cables that would sell on Amazon. So it's just slightly different, the same product, but it gives you a way to make a difference in terms of pricing so that it's not hurting your margins across all platforms or all marketplaces. So just thinking about how that may look. Second is the inventory decisions. We talked a little bit about this, like fragrances in Target for shampoo versus Amazon. Some are going to need foil seals, some aren't. So what do you do with that? Do you, like I said, do you create two sets of SKUs for this product? If you do that, if you think about how that can impact things, this is also very much the same with apparel. A lot of times you'll have Anthropologie or Dillard's or Macy's, they'll buy these items first, and then you'll have a little bit extra that's like available to sell that you would sell on your own website. A lot of times it requires some pretty sophisticated technology and also some pretty sophisticated warehouse management to be able to make sure that orders that are allocated, that you don't ultimately oversell your stock. So it may show that you just received in 1,000 dresses today for this one particular SKU, and you've got 750 wholesale orders, and you know that there's going to be an influencer that's going to wear this, and then you're expecting to sell more. You have to be very careful to make sure that you don't allocate more stock to your direct to consumer than what you have available to fill your orders. So that's definitely a big question that whenever you're talking to a 3PL that you want to make sure is you have a lot of clarity on. And if you're trying to do it yourself when it comes to like shipping your goods out and maintaining your own inventory, does the warehouse management software support that? Are the members of the team that you're trying to hire complex enough thinkers to really think through that? And do they have experience with it so that they can make sure that you don't end up in a problem situation? Another thing when it comes to inventory is that you should really think about where your inventory is placed. So if you're importing your product from China and you're coming in through California and you're selling mostly B2B, mostly to retailers, that's great. You don't need probably another location because of the fact that they're paying the shipping to get it into their distribution centers. However, if you have a big direct to consumer presence, it is incredibly expensive to ship from the West Coast because of the fact that 75 to 80% of the population is on the East Coast. So, that means that every single order, you're probably going to have 30% of your orders are sold in California and 70% are sold on the East Coast. That means 70% of your orders are not in zone 2, which means you're going to be paying a lot more money to get them to the East Coast. And you're also going to have longer periods of time for shipping to get those things to the East Coast. So you're going to have a lot more expedited if someone needs something quickly. So having an East Coast presence is particularly important if you're a direct to consumer brand. And you also just want to make sure that you're in a place where there's a lot of population. There's like 3 pockets on the East Coast that have very similar shipping rates. So you have like your ideal shipping rates, slightly less good, and then still good, but not quite as good. And so, but that ideal situation in terms of where the items ship, there's almost no people that live there. So you want to be really careful that there's a population base to be able to support your growth, because during peak season, or if you sell and an influencer sells out 2,000 or 3,000 units of your product, you want to make sure that you've got the support and the boots on the ground to be able to get those units shipped out so that your customers have a great experience. And Cindy, I don't know if you're looking, have there been any questions or anything yet?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, great. So, talking about this, the other component is the technology piece. We talked a little bit about this before too, but like you really do need systems that allow you to have an omni-channel approach. And you need to know, especially if you're going to be dealing with the retailers, how to make those systems talk to the retailer system. So that was the third thing that I was going to say there. And that can take some time to learn all of that. And so again, the next slide here that you see is like, why outsource? And generally, the reason that most brands outsource is to fast track sales. If you don't outsource your fulfillment, then what you really have to think about, you're stretched. So most companies, say to themselves, am I a product or a service company? Well, you're a product company if you're selling product to the masses, but you're also a service company if you're having to make sure that those items get out on time, in full, and your customers stay happy. And so if there's a service component there, you really have to think about that. And so do you want to grow a service arm of your company if you have a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge and aptitude in the product sales? Is that really the best use of your time? Most companies kind of decide at some point that that push and pull between the two is a distraction, and they want to just push an easy button and get the sales in faster. So handing off some of that to kind of like a key partner that can be a strategic partner that can help make sure everything goes right, while you focus on what you're good at, which is talking to your customers and driving sales and finding the best products to bring to your customers. So I always tell people, I speak at some of these functions a lot, helping brands kind of figure out their distribution channel. And the question is always like, a lot of companies want to DIY things, right? Like, I want to know how to do everything. I'm like that too. As a service provider, I want to make sure I know how to do everything that a customer is going to need, so that if I have to replace someone or whatever happens, I can speak knowledgeably on it, and I can help them through whatever the question may be. So I liken this a little bit to, you could do it, but do you really want to do it? And I think about this like cleaning your house, right? You could clean your house all day long. Do you want to, or would you rather just hire someone, a cleaning lady, to come, once or twice a month, or maybe once a week, and it just take that burden off of you, and you don't have to think about it anymore? Because that's really what we're talking about. It's kind of that level in terms of sexiness of what you're doing when it comes to schlepping cardboard boxes across a facility, and you're dealing with, not necessarily the most prestigious or the most sophisticated employees when you're in the space, and that's totally fine. But you just have to make a decision. Is that what you want? And so, the other thing is like time to market, right? So learning curves come at a cost generally. And so it's kind of like, you want to figure out how to build a house. Are you going to just DIY it yourself, or are you going to hire someone who knows how to do it and is a general contractor? Like, there's some things you want to do yourself, like, changing the backsplash in your kitchen is an easy project you can handle yourself, but you probably don't want to build a second story on your house. And so if your brand is scaling really fast, you kind of have to think about which category do I fit in here? Like, is this getting really complex really fast, or is it slow enough and small enough to where I can do it for a while? But you really do have kind of a time to market, and brands get hot and then they have a lifespan. And so, you have to constantly be iterating to bring new product that is going to make your lifespan expand. And let's say that you don't, and you have a 5-year run. Do you want to spend all of 5 of those years figuring out how to hire a warehouse team? Or do you want to spend those 5 years banking as many sales as you can get? And then figuring out what your next product or product line is going to be, that's also going to be hot and kind of go on a run again. So it's really all about prioritizing time and energy and having that clarity of focus to make sure that you're making the best decision for your brand as possible. And beyond that, there's a few other reasons that companies will outsource. And, these are I'll just kind of quickly hit on these, but space. So if you're in a position where you have you're shipping out of your basement, or you've got an office, but you're running out of room. If you are looking to add investor dollars or sell at some point in time, it's always going to be in your best interest to outsource fulfillment and warehousing, because you won't have a long-term liability on your balance sheet at that point, which you would have if you actually go out and lease space for yourself. So what happens is the long-term liability of your lease, as well as the worker to dollar ratio that every brand is looked at and kind of gauged on. If every time you increase $100,000, you have to add a worker, your valuation is not going to be as high. But if you have just an expense, every product I sell, it's going to require $1 for fulfillment, then all of a sudden that's just much more favorable in terms of the market. So you have to think about that. You have to think about, is this product really selling well, and is it going to continue to? Do I have a long-term plan that I feel is stable enough to where if I take on a lease, I feel like I can support that for a long period of time? And with fulfillment partners, you can kind of flex up and down from that perspective, and you don't have to worry about ever taking on too much space. The other thing is, like, do you want to take on space and invest in your future and have enough space that's going to work for 3 to 5 years? Or do you want to take on only what you need right at this moment? And so, because the 3 to 5 years, the lease is expensive. And so if you're holding on to space that you may not need for a while, that can become very costly. So it gives you the ability to kind of bridge that gap without having to struggle through it financially. Obviously, we talked about time. You get time back and bandwidth back. Access to a network of resources. So we were talking about all the different components that you're going to have if you're selling to retailers. It's super great to have a partner that can help you do that easily and without mistakes, because chargebacks can be expensive. And then, of course, the reduced rates on shipping. This is huge. And we have one customer that's a beautiful dress brand that we are able to save over $1 million a year in shipping costs. So for every dollar you spend on a fulfillment partner, you're normally going to be spending $4 on shipping for that order. And so if you have a fulfillment partner that has negotiated really great rates, it can save you a lot of money. It can actually offset a lot of the cost of using a partner. And then finally, the technical details. If you're working with the right vendor and you're in the retail world, they're going to be able to help you ensure that the ASNs are correct, the UCC 128 labels are correct, and that the connectivity is working through all of your different platforms.
So Courtney, I did get a question. So if I have a small company, what's the best, way for me to outsource if I don't I'm not one of those big brands that you mentioned?
Yeah, so we work with startups all the time. I mentioned the big brands because everyone is aware of who those companies are. But, we have, I'd say each month we probably bring on 4 to 5 startups that have not sold a single product yet, but they have the right backing and they have the right, connections to where we feel like they're going to be able to sell very quickly. Most companies are going to find that if they're shipping more than 20 orders, 20 orders a week. So about 100 orders a month is where you really need to be for it to make sense financially to use a 3PL partner. But once you have hit that number, then you're good. And I'll show you at the end of this presentation, I have a couple points about like what you want to, if you're thinking about getting into and using a fulfillment partner, some of the things you want to make sure you've done on your side. So like one example is you don't want to have a super wide but super shallow SKU concentration. So you don't want to have 15,000 SKUs and you've only got 3 units of each SKU, because in a fulfillment center, each SKU is going to have its own location, and that helps to ensure that their accuracy, that there's 100% accuracy. So if you have just a ton of SKUs and you only have a few units of each, your real estate is going to be a little more expensive on that side. So, and these are also things that we work with brands to help them pare down. We brought on an influencer last year that is scaling really fast, and she had thousands of SKUs. And so what she did was she did a big sell off at the end of the year. And then we picked up all of her fresh inventory coming in at the beginning of the year. So she was able to kind of like, really figure out what SKUs are heavily concentrated in her sales and maximize that. And so there's lots of ways that we can kind of help companies that are in your, that would answer those questions. So afterwards, if you would like to reach out to me, I'll be happy to walk you through that. If we're the right partner, I'll tell you. If we're not the right partner, I'll tell you too. So there's no pressure from that perspective.
And one other question, and when you talked about drop ship and the drop ship requirements, I know that many companies want you to go through a service. So do you work with all the different services?
Yep. So the way these companies work, I'll give you Dillard's, for example. Dillard's has their own platform, and then they have two, and I am not a technical person, so I'm not going to be able to use the technical words, but probably those technical words won't matter to anybody here anyway. So they have like two pathways, right? And then within those pathways, they're kind of like the host. So those two pathways speak into the Dillard's platforms. But from there, there's probably 30 or 40 different EDI companies that can connect into those two pathways to push the data through. And so like for us, some companies have don't have enough volume going into the retailers to where it makes sense to have a fully have a fully network solution to make it fully automated. Like if they're having one or two or three orders a month going into a retailer, we can go in and manually do some uploads to their data. And we can do that through either the platform, the Dillard's platform, if they have that 6-month, runway to not need EDI, or if they do, we can do it through someone who's like SPS. And what will happen is the orders will drop into our system. We'll go ahead and pull the orders the same way we do just a regular direct to consumer order. And then whenever the information is ready to be uploaded in terms of the tracking information, and all of the details that the retailer needs to confirm that the order went out, we can just manually go in and make those happen. So there's like a crawl, walk, run solution to that. And that's another thing, having a partner is going to really help kind of flesh out for a brand. And so some of the things I just kind of wanted to like help people understand kind of where this is, if you're having these experiences, these are things that a partner may help with. So like I'm always losing out on sales because my product goes out of stock. Going back to that, having the right inventory management solution in place. You should be able to kind of get ahead of that. And like in our system, for instance, we can set ceilings and floors for product. And so like when it hits this level, you automatically get an alert that you need to reorder, or you make a decision if you're going to reorder. I need to really get a handle on demand planning and inventory management, but I don't even know where to start. This is a real problem for brands that are selling in multiple channels and don't have a really solid like ERP or accounting platform. And that's another place where we can kind of really help a lot. Having the clarity, there's a lot of clarity that comes from having the right systems that are in place. I heard this one last week. I went to lunch with a friend last week who has a brand. She's like, I would love to be in the big box retailers, but I have friends who didn't make it because they were eaten alive by chargebacks. And that is totally true. And that is very much an issue. Certain 3PLs are better at managing retailers than others. And so, you definitely probably don't want to be doing a lot of the retail stuff DIY. But even more so, you want to make sure you have the right partner to be able to work with the retailers. And then I have opportunities with wholesale accounts, but in order to get those going, I need to be set up with EDI and know how to follow their compliance requirements, which are really technical, time consuming. And I didn't write this in here, but most people say very overwhelming. And Cindy, you and I were talking about this the other day. Those guides, I think the Target apparel guide is like 50 pages. The Target CPG guide is like 200 pages. The Walmart guides are like 1,000 pages, but there are sections of each of those that apply, right? So like the whole thing's not going to apply to everyone. So you have to understand kind of how to read them and what you tease out in terms of the need. And so generally in those retailer guides, it's going to come down to 3 things. It's going to come down to, are the products that are in the cases correctly listed in the ASN? So that's number 1. Number 2, are the labels readable by all of their automated scanners? And then number 3, did you upload the routing instructions properly so that they're not having to overpay on shipping? So an example of that is if you don't use the right BOL, there's a code that says what type of product is in the boxes. And if you don't fill that code in, then the carrier, UPS, can automatically assume it's hazmat. And so then you're getting charged the highest level, and you're not the one that's getting charged for that. The retailer is getting charged for that. So the retailer puts a lot of control in the vendor's hands, but they expect that that control is going to be met with responsibility. And so that's kind of where that chargeback concept comes in. And they put the chargebacks to be strong enough to where you really shouldn't make that mistake more than once. It's enough to make you pay attention, you know? So again, having the right partnership can help with this. And then of course, if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions. But the bottom line of it all is that if you're having issues like this, it's a systems issue. You need systems in place to have the visibility to data and a solid plan for assertively managing your inventory. And most companies that ultimately decide to work with an outsourced partner for their fulfillment, they are able to then shift their focus from tactical decisions every day to more strategic decisions that are going to really help move the needle for their brand. And it just gives a purity and a clarity of focus for most companies because it takes a lot of the noise away. And so as far as like the way that just kind of getting in the shoes of the retailers, like what does it mean to be a retailer and what are they looking for? Their three biggest complaints from new brands that are getting into retail for the first time is that brands try to DIY RFID tags. I just think I laugh every time I hear that because I'm like, you'd have to have like a technical engineer really do that well, right? Like there's only a couple companies that actually make those RFID tags. And trying to kind of like put them together in a hopscotch way is just never going to work at scale. So, just understanding who those companies are and having the relationships in place there to help get that off the ground can really be helpful.
So Courtney, do you have to have RFID and you have to have a barcode?
Most RFID tags now are going to have a barcode, and then they're also going to have the RFID code. And some are going to have one and it's interchangeable. So like the barcode itself will read just fine, but it's still going to be serialized so that when someone takes that little the tool to like the sensor, it's going to come across on the RFID software. It's going to show that there's like an extra 4 digits on the end that show the serial number for that item. And the reality is that when you are making something at your factory, if you have the right systems and tools and people in place, it should be as simple as, hey, I need you to add 1 extra hang tag, and you can call your vendor at one of the 2 companies that really do this well and say, hey, I need to order 45 hang tags. Can you ship them to this location? It really becomes that simple once you know kind of what you're doing. So it's not as daunting as it seems, but it takes a little bit of knowledge. We talked a little bit about this, that a lot of times brand new vendors that are selling into retailers, the items that are inside the carton will not match the list that they sent in, the packing list that they sent in to the retailer that says what's in each case. That's really important, for many reasons. So like if you have a case that's like a single SKU case pack of 24 blouses and they're all size small and they're all supposed to be color pink, they're going to put those in a different location in their facility, waiting for those to be shipped out to their different stores as needed. And so if you actually have 3 of those that are mediums rather than all smalls, those should actually be placed in a completely different location. So there's traveling that happens within their facility if these things aren't located properly in the boxes. And then finally, if a vendor is regularly receiving chargebacks on things like the 128 labels not scanning, missing, or incorrect. 128 labels as a 3PL, this is the bane of my existence. So we ship in about 6 million units to Kohl's each year for some of our brands. And the problem with the UCC 128 labels not printing properly is sometimes if there's like a little bit of a wrinkle in the printing ribbon, you end up with an extra white line that you can't see. You can look at it and it looks totally fine, but it won't scan, and it won't scan because there was a little extra white that was added into that barcode, or the same thing, a black line. So, you know, knowing kind of how to go about solving that is really important. And so, you know, these are the times when some of our retailers will call us if they have a brand that's just kind of been like, they really want to see it succeed. They think it's got a lot of potential, but the logistics side is just not working properly. So right versus wrong fulfillment partner. Let's talk a little bit about that. So this is an example. This is actually the friend I had lunch with last week, and this was from about 2 years ago, when she was really struggling. We had just met. Her showroom at the Apparel Mart in Atlanta had told her about this 3PL. Her orders were going out, flying off the shelf, and so she couldn't do it anymore. She sent them to a place in Boston, and it was a disaster. And when I first met her, she was like, "Oh, I'm so happy. They're doing a great job. Like, I don't have to deal with it anymore." And then a month later, they changed systems, and she had like one wholesale order, and they double shipped that wholesale order. And so then she lost out on all of her sales for her D2C. And then, you know, she was a woman, and she was like, of course they're talking to me like, "Well, ma'am, I've been doing this 35 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. This isn't me. This is you." And she's like, they weren't taking responsibility, and they were treating me like I was stupid. And so, you know, there's a lot to this whole thing that you can kind of unpack, but I think what it really comes down to is that you want to find the right fit. And that right fit is not just, do they ship the type of products that you ship, but it's also, do they match your personality? Do they match your urgency? Do they match your directness in terms of communication? And also, of course, are they situated to where they're going to be able to serve your customers as fast as possible and as cheaply as possible? So, and then again, are they going to be able to bring a bunch of workers if you have a big, heavy season? I mean, like I've got this, like I said, one of the influencers that we've recently brought on, I mean, she'll do a new drop of these sweatshirts that have these really cute prints on the front. And literally overnight, it'll go from where she was selling, you know, 1,500 units a week to where she hits 5,000 in 1 week. Like, it's a lot. And then she'll sell out of that product, and she'll bring on a new one. And, you know, same thing with her jewelry. That is like, you can take a bath in it, or you can get in the pool during the summer. That stuff will just fly off the shelf in June, right before everybody's going on vacation. So it's really about understanding. It's about understanding your product and understanding how it sells. And that comes from asking a lot of questions up front in the process to make sure that it's a good fit. And then it's about, you know, understanding that certain 3PLs are better at some things than others. So we have 3PLs. We've got big and bulky 3PLs that send us all their apparel leads, or all their small item leads. They have the most amazing shipping rates on big and bulky things, but they don't make that much money when they're shipping things that are normal size, and they just don't want those leads. Then you have, you know, 3PLs that are fully automated, and they've spent millions and millions of dollars on conveyors. And those are awesome for things like SKUs that there's only like 3 SKUs for a brand, but they sell like 10 or 20 or 30,000 a day, you know. Those 3PLs that are fully automated, they've invested so much in order to not necessarily have to have labor. So they're not going to be the right 3PL, most likely, to be able to send handwritten notes to influencers and to, you know, buyers and the retailers. So you really kind of have to decide between what you want your experience to look like. Do you want the personal touch? Do you not need the personal touch because your products don't require that? Electronics, you know how to ship batteries, perfumes. You have to know how to ship hazmat. A lot of those things, they can't be flown in an airplane. They can just be shipped ground. So you want someone who has experience with other products in your category, and you want the same values and personality fit. And then I'll show you this other slide, which is, I think this is probably the most
I think
important.
we may have a question.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay. Faith, did you want to ask a question? I think you had raised your hand. Oh, So Faith asked, can you explain what a 3PL is?
Sure. I'm so sorry I haven't done that already. That hopefully this hasn't all, you haven't been lost the whole time. A 3PL is a third-party logistics company. So what a 3PL does is they, when you are bringing your product in from your factory in Asia or wherever it's being produced, maybe it's being produced in the garment district in LA, it's a warehouse. So first of all, they warehouse your items. So they receive in your stock. They make sure that they count the number of units that they received against what you paid for, so that you're not paying for extra things that you didn't actually receive from your vendors. And then they will network with your Shopify as well as any other retailer platforms that you have, so that as your orders come in through your Shopify store, they drop into the warehouse management software, and then those orders can be picked, packed, and shipped. And those orders may be direct to consumer orders that are, Miss Mary bought an item and it needs to be delivered to their front door. It may be orders that are going to be shipped into the Amazon fulfillment center that need to have FN SKU labels attached, as well as, put in cases the right way. Or it may be retail orders, which could be bulk retailer orders that are going into a distribution center, or drop ship orders that are coming in from a retailer's website.
So your third party logistics is just your, it's a warehouse.
It's a warehouse. Now, warehousing is generally, you're going to hear warehousing when you're talking about shipping full cases of product and full pallets of product.
Mhm.
Fulfillment is going to be single units, a few units at a time, as well as the full cases. So warehousing is generally going to be much larger bulk quantities, and fulfillment is going to be small, medium, and large quantities, but a concentration on the ability to do the small quantities.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there are three basic types of third-party logistics companies that are out there. So one of the latest models, which is kind of, some people kind of like the idea of this, is that you rent warehouse space from a big warehouse, and then you find your own employees to come and work at that warehouse. And you're just paying a monthly fee for the space that you're using. That's kind of what we would call an effective partner at that point. So it's self-service, it's kind of user-directed, and it's kind of transactional, and it's definitely going to be the least expensive. And then secondly, you have the enhanced type of 3PL, which is a very big box option. They have a lot of resources. They have probably beautiful print material, and they probably have, a lot of salespeople and a lot of customer service people. The challenge with that is that they may not be deployed, those resources may not be deployed fast enough. And you may be treated a little bit like a cookie cutter. And so we've got some brands now that are leaving a very large 3PL, and that was their experience. It took months to be able to make changes to their account in terms of the way that packaging was done. Trying to negotiate service level agreement changes was almost impossible. They had big minimums. They had account managers that were kind of changing over all the time. So high turnover. So, those are companies that have, probably you've heard of them. But at the same time, you can also have engaged companies that are in that big box category. It really just depends on the type of 3PL that you're working with and the personality of the people that you're dealing with. But the engaged, kind of like what perfect looks like, is really going to be a company that has enough resources to take care of you, that's, cost effective, but at the same time provides really amazing service. And they may be a little more expensive than the self-directed, the lowest cost option, but very often the enhanced and the engaged are about the same price. So it just depends, again, on what your needs are. And, and if you have questions about what are the right questions to be asking to make sure that you have the right fit, then I'll be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, and we actually are running out of time because it's noon now. So, what I think, we can do is go ahead and, because this ran much longer and maybe, Courtney, we ask you to come back and we'll finish at another time, expand this, and we can go ahead and allow, we'll go ahead and send information out on your company. And if anybody has any other questions, because I see people have to drop off because it is now an hour gone. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I-
And
I
appreciate,
know logistics is one of those things that everybody needs. It's just not as, it's not product.
yep, absolutely.
So thank you, Courtney, and we will try to come back and maybe you can share some of this information with everyone, the deck.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay,
All
well,
right,
thank you.
much.
I'm so sorry. I should have given you the warning sign. Oh, we're starting to run out of time.
Oh, that's okay, no problem. And we were right at the end anyway, so it works.
And if anybody does have a quick question, feel free to go ahead and ask. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.